If you're a serious inshore saltwater angler and you travel at all, or maybe you've just been in a spot where you're like, man, I wish I had a rod right now in the back of my car, then you've got to get your hands on the Slam Stick Traveler spinning rod from Fish Strong. It is the only rod that is 4-in-1, meaning you can have these 4 setups at any given time, all in one small case. Medium power fast action, medium power moderate fast action, medium light power fast action, and medium light power moderate fast action. Guys, this is a game changer. And number 2, it is 7/6, giving you way more opportunities to reach fish that you would never be able to reach with the 7-foot rod, which, by the way, almost all travel rods are only 7 foot. So it's 7/6 and it's 4-in-1, comes with a crazy sturdy case. Luke and I have flown with this multiple times. It is so easy to travel with. You can put it in the back of a small car. Heck, you can put the shoulder strap on a motorcycle and go fish anywhere. You can only get it at fishstrong.com. And if you're an Insider member, you save a ton of money. Go find out right now why it's got almost a perfect 5-star review across the board at fishstrong.com. And here's the podcast.
It's fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Don't buy a saltwater fishing rod until you watch this. Hey, everybody, Joe Simons, like diamonds.
Hey, Luke Simons.
Talking about rod selection. This is the biggest mistake we made, and especially if you're using lures to catch redfish, pickerel, trout, snook, flounder, tarpon, etc. The rod is critical. It is so much more important than the reel. You should spend more money on the rod than a reel. It's something I feel like we've said a million times, but I still see people make the mistake. And I know we made that mistake for years, so it is a very, very, very common one. Luke, let's talk about some of the problems and the mistakes that people make when they're choosing their first rod or the second rod, third rod, whatever it is. And this is specific for inshore saltwater fishing, mostly towards lures. We'll talk about live bait as well, but mostly towards lures. So what do we got?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is just so much marketing money is going to reels. I guess the profit margin is better there. But yeah, so like for years, I would go out, even, just mowing lawns in high school. I would be mowing lawns and I would go out and spend a majority of my money that went towards fishing on reels. I was focused on the reel, and then the rod was just whatever money was left over. And I did that for many years, and I was buying $200 and $300 reels when I shouldn't have been doing that, and then I was getting like a $60 rod, and we struggled. Like I just was not getting the results I thought I needed. That's when I thought live bait. Okay, I need to have live bait. And then we went to like having a boat. We talked our dad into getting a nice flats boat, and nothing worked until finally realized that I finally fished with someone I knew what they're doing, and I was seeing how much farther they were casting, and that was like finally my aha moment where I need to get a nice rod and I need to lighten up on my line and just get the right gear. And what I was doing before, I was spending more money than I should have, and I was getting worse results. So it was like the ultimate slap in the face.
Let's talk about what the rod does, because I don't think a lot of people think about this. Like you said, it was almost an afterthought. The reel, all the reel does is bring line in and out and provides a little drag. That's it. That's all it does. There's nothing else that reel does. What does the rod do?
Yeah, the rod is basically like your fingers. So the rod does everything but actually, reel the line in. So and all the most important stuff. So the reel doesn't come into the reel. Obviously, like we're talking about spinning gear in this instance. For bait casting, the reel is a little bit more important, just because that there's a lot of mechanics involved with that type of reel. With spinning tackle, I have one here. All the reel does is just get the bail out of the way so that the line can shoot off. So the rod is what delivers the tip speed for that line to shoot off. You need to have the right speed of release. The rod is what feels for strikes, obviously. The rod is what has the power to set the hook. The rod is what provides the power to control a fish around the boat or around the kayak, or for waders around your feet, right? When that fish is digging down, especially redfish, they're notorious for just digging up underneath. And if you don't have a rod that has the right power structure, the action and power combination, you're either going to break a rod, number one, or you're just going to not have the power to actually get the fish up. So the rod does everything. And And on top of the basics like that, I would say more importantly, especially for those of us who just like to explore new areas, having a sensitive rod allows you to actually feel the bottom and know what type of bottom structure there is. Where even if you bump up on a rock without the right equipment, you can't feel that. And knowing exactly where the rocks are, or oysters, or whatever, any sort of bottom structure, the more you can know that other people don't know, you're going to be catching way more fish. Because obviously that's bottom structure is typically what controls the 90-10 spot. And we always teach about the 90% of the fish are in 10% of the water. That 10% of the water is usually dependent on some sort of bottom structure. And if you can find the bottom structure that most people don't know about, typically that's going to be with everything, anything on a chart people know about. But if you can actually feel something that people don't know, or like a one dock out of 10 that has a little bit more stuff on the bottom, almost always that's going to be the dock with the most fish. So being able to feel, especially more than just the strikes, is a huge advantage.
But the feeling's almost more advanced, just at the very top level. Yeah. We've asked so many guides, we've been on the boat with so many guides, and we say, what's your number one frustration? What do people struggle with more than anything? And 100% of them say casting. Like, there is nothing worse. And this goes with or without a guide. There's nothing worse if you're in a good spot, you're in the 90-10 zone, and you can't reach them because you don't know how to cast far enough, or you have a crappy little broomstick rod that just won't cast, or it's too short. I mean, the longer the rod, further you can cast, the better the rod. Like Luke said, it's a lever. It's what gives you the leverage to sling that thing out. And number two, it's just inaccurate. It's a lot of times why a guide, if they're watching and they're like, this person cannot cast to save their life, that's why a guide sometimes like, let me just cast this out there for you. There's nothing worse as a fisherman. You spend all this time, all this energy, all this investments, regardless if you have a boat, kayak, whatever, and all of a sudden you can't catch fish, or you spook the fish because of a horrible cast. You can't get to them because they are near structure, and that rod is what's going to enable you to do that. And we've been fishing, right, Luke? We're watching someone, and it's not that they're a bad person or a really bad angler. They just got the wrong equipment and they can't reach. And we're like, try this out, and they're like, whoa. Game changer, going from like a 7-foot like stiff live bait rod to like a slot machine or a slam stick and a 7.6, and like, whoa, or even like to TFO. Like, it is a game changer. It will open your eyes and be like, wow, I have missed so many opportunities because I couldn't even reach them, or wasn't accurate.
Yeah,
it's a huge problem.
Yeah, and it's not just for, a lot of people might think, okay, this is just like a beginner issue. I try to take people all the time, and even people who fishing for 20, 30 years, like people who are like identify as fishermen, and they just can't perform nearly as they should, right, for their years of being on the water. And it's not because they're not good. It's not, they don't have the proper mechanics. They just don't have the right gear. And Joe mentioned like a rod that's too powerful. The same thing for, like, I call it a wet noodle rod. It's one of those rods that are marketed as unbreakable. It's cool that they're unbreakable, but as soon as I hear that word, I almost always automatically know that it's not going to be sensitive at all. It's designed to not break. It's not designed to feel everything. The rods that are designed to feel everything are the ones that are breakable. So if you're leaning towards one of those unbreakable rods, again, cool if you're having a kid, rod that won't break. But if you actually want to feel the bottom, especially using lures, I highly recommend against those unbreakable rods.
And before we kind of talk about the answer, same with, I would call them cheap combos in general, meaning a rod and reel combo. If you see that and you're serious about catching fish, especially with lures, I would run away as fast as humanly possible. There's a reason they're able to sell those for so cheap. It's usually got a decent reel that gets people's attention, and then it's a horrible rod that is not going to do you any justice. In fact, I would say you're going to catch fewer fish because of that rod, which is why we've been against, in general, combos. Now, if you're just buying something for your kid off the dock, fine. But if you're really serious about being a great angler and being more consistent and catching more fish and reaching more fish that your friends can't, do not get a cheap combo that you see for $100 and something at Walmart or Bass Pro or Dick's. Doesn't even matter. But I would stay so far away from that. And sadly, that's one of the top selling things out there for fishermen, meaning in rods and reel selection, is getting these combos. And it's like, oh my gosh, if people only knew.
Yeah, and those combos, the rod is generally named after the reel. It just goes back to like the marketing focuses on reels, and the rod's kind of, oh yeah, we're going to pair this rod with this reel, so let's just name the rod the reel. And so that's your sign if the rod
even matching colors.
Oh yeah, it looks nice.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so I think we've covered the issues. It is, and we spent a while on that because it's so important. This is what held me back for many years. I was breaking my back throwing the cast net, thinking that I had to use live bait. In reality, all I needed to do was just have nicer gear, and I could have been catching just as many, if not more, fish with lures than I ever did with live bait. Now, most of my personal bests are with lures. If you have the right gear, lures are incredibly effective, and they just provide freedom. Obviously, you can still use live bait with a nice rod. It just helps everything. You can cast whatever, whether it's live bait or lures. You can cast more accurately. You can feel the strikes before most other people do because you actually have a sensitive rod.
You set a hook on the right thing, not a rock or a pinfish or something. I mean, the feeling part of it is huge. Like I said, it's a little bit more advanced. You still gotta make the cast first before any of that stuff happens. But it's a game changer on the feeling part and setting the hook on a nice rod versus a crummy one.
Yeah, and so one more caution that we'll put out there, because I fell for this too, where I would go fishing with guides to try to learn the ropes back in the day, and so I would just get whatever stuff they were using. Like, oh, if a guide's using it, I should be using it too, right? It's good enough for a guide. It's good enough for me, and kind of that's sometimes true, but for the rod in particular, that's usually not, because guides are typically taking very green people, people who don't fish very much. They're very prone to high sticking, which means that you're pulling up on the rod when you should be letting the fish go, let the rod go down with the fish pulling. So a lot of the rods that the guides use are more designed to not break than to feel like a thing. And a lot of guides are using live bait or cut bait most of the time. So an issue I did, again, for another thing that set me back, once I started actually spending money on rods, I was going out and buying rods that I saw the guides using, and then realized, again, years later, probably thousands of dollars after going through gear later, that, okay, I wasn't getting the sensitivity that I needed, because these rods are more designed to not break than to actually feel everything. Because as I said before, the better the rod can feel, the more likely it's going to break. But for an advanced angler, you'll never break the rod. As long as you take care of it and don't high stick, the rod won't break.
And most guides will tell you that. Like, if they were going to go out on a tournament and they were fishing with lures, they're not using the same rods that you see on their boat. And this is not to bash any guide or brand or anything like that, but in general, Luke nailed it. Don't do just what the guides do. Or this guy had this rod. We know countless guides who would tell you that. Like, yeah, I'm not going to use that same broom. So I'm just trying, like you said, I'm trying to get something that's going to last. I'm not having to replace it with a bunch of new people or people that are drinking and breaking our stuff. So it's such a different mindset shift, which is why we're doing this, because we see it over and over again. And we even had some friends that have been like, oh, I was on this guide, and man, they had these rods. Like, man, this rod stink. Meaning they're good for just going out there and soaking a shrimp or a cut bait and just catching fish. But if you're really trying to become a great angler, like what we call it a total angler, where you can go out there and catch fish, live bait or lures, and you want the best and you want to catch more fish and outfish your friends, focus on a good rod. So let's talk about that. What makes a good rod or a great rod for inshore saltwater fishing, for lures in particular?
Yeah, let's just start with the basics. So in general, just for a good all-purpose setup, and we're just talking, throwing the typical like 3 to 5 inch lures, a medium power fast action tip rod is very good. And every rod company has a little bit different ratings, so it's not going to always be perfect. But in general, the medium power, and the power is what is the amount of force it takes to bend the rod. And then the fast action means that most of the bending happens up towards the tip. So the fast action gives it just a quicker release. So when you're throwing lures, they'll sling out farther. For live bait, though, is the fast action does have a higher tendency to sling the baits off. Sometimes the tip is too fast. That's okay, because you can correct for that. Just simply don't cast as hard. So I now use fast action rods for everything, whether I'm live bait fishing or not. I just know that, okay, if I'm using live bait, I need to do more of an arcing cast versus the dart cast, like the really quick thing for lures. So as far as length, it's another topic. 7-foot rods are most common. But if you're gonna be throwing lures a lot, highly recommend 7.6. That's now what I have. I started with 7s for a while and then went 7.6s and loved it. And now when I go back to a 7, I just feel like why am I
Like
making
you're
this harder?
handicapped, right? It's like you can barely. Yeah, it's like what?
Like, why am I making this harder than it should be? So 7.6 rod is it doesn't seem like that should make a big difference, but it does. You're going to be casting farther. Number one, it's simple physics, right? The longer the lever, the faster that tip is going to be going with using the same force. But also a part that's overlooked, especially with kayak anglers, we have a lot of members like, oh no, I need a 7-foot rod because of it won't fit on my kayak or whatever. But for kayak angling especially, you need the longer rod because when that redfish is digging under the kayak, they naturally go for shade. So when that fish is digging, if you don't have a long rod and you have to kind of loop the rod over the bow, over the front of the kayak, if you don't have the length, you're gonna bust your rod. Like that fish is gonna bend that rod, and you're gonna break it on your kayak when you try to swing to the other side. So
Unless you have a wet noodle rod, but then you wouldn't have caught the fish in the first place.
yeah. If you have an unbreakable rod, it's fine. But yeah, so 7.6 medium power fast action is just a good all-purpose setup. If you're gonna be throwing, say, like 5-inch swim baits, some heavier baits in like inlets and passes where you need some more power, then I'd definitely go medium heavy. And if you're going to be focusing a lot on like pompano and trout, like just with like little 3-inch jigs or lighter, and you're not throwing weedless lures, then a medium light power fast action would be good. But in general, it's hard to go wrong with a medium power fast action. When I was tournament fishing, I would literally have like 5 of the exact same combos, and it was all medium power fast action because it's just a good all-purpose thing.
All right, so let's talk about what you've learned, because you've done everything from going to the rod building classes, and really that was kind of one of your kind of big goals was to study it from the inside out. And like, all right, what makes a good rod? Because what I don't like about the fishing industry, we came from the financial service industry where it is regulated, and there's good and bad regulations. I'm not saying the government should be in charge of everything, because they shouldn't. But it is also nice to have a little bit of consistency. And I feel like with rods and even reels, the sizing and what they say, it could be so far off because there's no regulations at all. And that part has been very confusing, because there are certain rods like, oh, it says medium, and you realize like this ain't medium. And there's some that I won't belabor the point, but you went down this path to really discover what makes a great rod. And obviously we've built quite a few at fishstrong.com, and we're very, very specific with ours. We won't put it out there unless we've put, who knows how many hours of fishing with it, trying to break it every which way possible. And so if you see it on fishstrong.com, it has been tested like crazy, because we're putting our name on it and a pretty big warranty and a huge discount to our members. So what makes a great rod?
So sensitivity, right? That's the key. You want to have a sensitive rod. And what ask the question, hey, how do I know if it's sensitive or not? So just a way to tell. Number one, it was just weight. So the lighter the rod, the better it's going to feel, right? There's the less of the lighter the rod, the least amount of force has to happen for that rod to actually start impacting at the handle, the tip of the handle. Number two is, again, you don't want to have a rod that is like a fly rod, for example. That will be like a very slow action rod, where that rod is just a giant. All it does is essentially absorb the energy before it gets down to the butt. So highly recommend, again, those fast action tips where the tip is going to just move a little bit, but you're going to feel that impact down the rod much better than one of those very slow arching, fly rods. Like fly rods, when you're fishing, you have that rod bent straight forward. The rod is taken out of the equation for feel, because you can't feel anything with the fly rod. Yeah. So when I go to the store, I basically will get the rod, and I'll essentially put the guides up, and I'll just tap the tip on the ground lightly. And that way I can feel the amount of force I'm doing right now on the floor. I'm feeling the amount of force it takes to bend the rod. And then I'm looking down the blank to see where that bending is happening. Because some companies, I've seen some that are marketed as extra fast tips. And when you actually do this test, it's actually bending at the same curvature as like a moderate fast. So sadly, like the fast action,
Where would that be for someone listening? So,
So-
you flip the rod with the guides up, put it down on the
Yeah.
ground, and
So-
push down on the tip.
so a fast action tip would be all the bending is happening with just like a moderate force, like a fairly light force. The bending is happening in like the top third. Like if the bending is happening in like the middle third, then that's probably moderate fast. And if it's all up the top third, it's a fast. And if that's like the very tip, that's extra fast. Very few companies do true extra fast because those are most likely to break. Like when we were designing our first rod, the slot machine, the first version, I wanted to go extra fast because, hey, you're going to feel everything. And then when I was actually testing, it's very breakable, number one. And it was almost for that tip only to bend, I actually had less feel of strikes than I did with the fast action. That's why we ended up going fast. But yeah, in general, again, fast action we would look for, but just do that tip test and just make sure that entire rod isn't bending. So you do not want a fly rod for feeling for strikes and spin fishing.
Okay. And what else?
Guides.
Sensitivity and guide. Yeah.
Yeah. So the guide train is a big deal. And that was, I didn't know this until I started taking those rod building classes. And this is really, it's really the guide train is why people spend, $500 or more on these custom rods, is because what these rod builders do, again, which I had no idea about till I actually started going to those classes, is what they do is they first decide, okay, what rod length do you want, what power, okay, now what reel are you going to put on it? And at first I was like, why do I care about the reel? But what they're doing is they're setting up these eyes. I'm bumping into things here. They're setting up these eyes. These first three eyes in particular are called the line reduction guides. They're the ones that get the line that's oscillating from the spinning reel and then get it to smooth out to shoot through the running guides. And so what the custom rod builders do is they actually figure out, okay, at what point on the rod should the line start going straight? And then they purposely get the right size and placements of these guides to have that line flow through as efficiently as possible. If you go too far down, a lot of rods, because the rod companies, they don't know what reel that the buyer's going to put on it, so they kind of have to guess. And a lot of them seem to guess with like I don't know why. A lot of them seem to have the first guides too far down, and what that's going to do, that's going to constrict the line. Like as this line is trying to naturally flow off in a straight line here, some people are listening, but it's going to pull the rod. It's going to pull the line down towards the rod too fast, and it's just going to decrease casting distance, and it's going to increase the odds of wind knots. Versus letting the line kind of go through more naturally, it seems to again decrease wind knots and increase casting distance. Again,
What's the test? You've done a video on it to kind of show the test to make sure it's going to hit those first or not hit the first three guides, where it's going to go through smoothly. And
one test I can't demonstrate here in the office, but the premise though is to put your finger on have the reel on the rod, the line spooled through the eyes, and then force with your finger on one hand, put the line, like pin the line on the very middle part of the spool. Right, that's the center of the oscillation.
The top of the spool.
Yeah, the very top of the spool, centered, and then hold the lure or hook, whatever you have tied to the line, and just put just a little bit of force just to get the line straight. And what you want to do, if I can show this, is you want to see where, we can see it behind that painting. You want to see exactly where on that first guide, and really the first couple guides, is it? Oh dang, I just lost it. But you basically want to see where that line is going through on those guides. And so this is the slam stick. As you can see, try to hold it steady. You see that line is going through perfect center on that first line reduction guide, meaning that it's going to be as efficient as possible. And then on the second one, it's not hitting either. It's a little bit high, but it's not hitting. So on those first two guides, as it naturally flows through, it's not going to be hitting. It's at least going to be hitting as minimal as possible. Whereas if that guide was too far down, I'm just faking it now, but if that first guide was too close to the reel, when you put that, and this is what most production rods are, if you do that test with a production rod, you're going to see that line, when centered on the spool, is going to be pushed up against the guide, that very first guide. again, not the end of the world, but it's just not efficient. It's not helpful.
And there's some, we're not going to name names, but there's some very popular rods that do that are not efficient at all. So try it out for yourself. We won't have to name names, but try that out. Luke, maybe repeat. So you put your finger on the very top dead center of the spool, give a little bit of tension on that line, and just watch where it goes through those guides. If it's touching that first, or really even second guide, but especially if it's touching the first one, you have either the wrong rod or the wrong reel, like meaning it's not paired up correctly, because you also want the balance, right? And that is why the slot machine has sold so well. Why people love it. It is, and if you're putting with a 4,000, it's not a great fit. But if you're putting like a 2,500, like the Otis 3,000 or a 2,500 Daiwa Shimano, it is almost like having a custom rod for that reel, and you will see synergies. It will feel just so natural. It'll feel smooth, and you'll be able to cast further than anything else. It is made for efficiency.
Yeah, and so other things to consider, and we'll just go because the slot machine is our ultimate performance rod. Again, the higher you go with the performance ladder, the more likely it's going to break. So we designed this one against the recommendations from rod builders, because it's all about performance. And even things like paint on the blank is something I never thought about. I was like, yeah, paint on the blank, who cares? But initially I wanted to have like a sky cam. I wanted to have like a paint that was lighter in color to kind of blend in with the sky. And come to find out, I got some prototypes. And this thing's heavy. Like what happened? And to go to that lighter material, rod blanks naturally are this color because this literally has no paint. And so to have a lighter paint job, they have to put more coats of paint on. So it has to be a thicker coat. And that paint alone added, I can't remember the exact amount, but I believe it was like 0.6 ounces, which is, for a rod, that's a lot. That's a big percentage change. So paint does have some benefits. Number one, it helps prevent some nicks that could lead to breaks later. But the con is that you're going to add weight and you're going to lose feel. So for our highest end rod, we have no paint. This is pure carbon, nothing protecting it. For those who take care of the rods and want ultimate performance, there's nothing better, because nobody else takes the risk of building a rod that's breakable. But after using this, I have a hard time going back to anything else, because I literally can feel everything. Like even like taking paddle tails, or I've been throwing a lot of soft plastics lately as the wind's been just crazy calm and clear water. And so I can feel the difference between a pinfish or like just like a small snap or something kind of pecking at the lure, at which point I don't set the hook, versus the thump of a trout or a redfish or snook, at which point you do set the hook. So like those of you who lose a lot of tails with paddle tails, that's generally going to be little pinfish and small stuff that are just pecking at the tail. They don't have the ability to break it off unless you're jerking it. Unless you're doing a Bill Dance hook set on a pinfish, you're not going to lose your tail to a little pinfish. So being able to just make sure, like I purposely let the pinfish mess with it for as long as possible, because what happens is when that's happening, if there's a big trout nearby, it's going to see that commotion, come through, and then try to take that easy meal. And so it actually increases the odds of catching the big fish when you let those little small fish mess with the lures. But if you can't tell the difference, you're going to be doing a big hook set, and that's going to spook not only the pinfish, but it's also going to spook the bigger fish nearby that could have been your next catch. So long story short, yeah, the thicker the paint job, like the thicker the paint, the stronger it's going to be, which is good, but the less feel you're going to have. And to have the most feel possible, paint free. And I don't know any of the people that does it. Like I don't think you'll see many in stores that have straight carb. So
because they're selling to the fishermen, like, you get people who are so proud of, oh, look how cool this rod looks, but you know how much paint is on there, and not just sensitivity too. If you're casting all day, you want as light a rod as humanly possible. I mean, the slot machine is kind of like a race car. If you've ever been in a true performance race car, they're trying to eliminate every ounce possible. There's no frills. It is obviously they have a paint job because they have their sponsors on there, but everything else inside, it is just almost like gutted to be a high performance. We want to get from here to here as fast as humanly possible and be able to feel everything. It is no frills, all performance, and that's what the slot machine is. But as you said, It's not for everyone. Everything has a pro and con, just like a race car is not for everyone. The slot machine, if you are a beginner or someone who is not used to a high-end rod, you might want to start with like a slot machine or even TFO Pro, something that's a little bit less expensive, still great rod. You're still going to be able to feel everything, or not everything, most things. You'll still get great casting distance. But yeah, that's the one thing when I see people who buy a slot machine and they're just not ready for it, it can lead to a painful breakage.
Yeah, and just another benefit of going with the lighter setups, and something that I didn't really think much about, but it's first of all, it obviously it's just less effort to cast. So if you're going to be fishing for 2+ hours and you're making a bunch of casts, it's noticeable. It's noticeable if you have a light rod versus a heavy rod. But a cool benefit of especially light rods plus a light reel is that I actually had this happen. I guess it was 2 weeks ago on the paddleboard. If an accident happens and the rod ends up falling, it's like the whole setup ends up falling in the water, it floats. It floats naturally. I know a lot of kayakers buy those big old orange things that they kind of clip onto the rod so that it floats. If you get the good stuff, it floats naturally. And I was on the paddleboard and it was rougher than planned, and I never bothered like securing my cooler down, which has rod holders. And I heard a bang, and all of a sudden I look over my coolers in the water, plus 2 of my rods that were on it, plus my paddle, and I had that little motorized paddleboard. And so anyhow, the rods finally shook off. It was probably like a legit 5 minutes before I got the rods, because I had to get the cooler first, which was sailing, and then I found the paddle, and then I finally like found the rods 100 feet further up. That I would have totally lost all of them if I didn't have the floating rod. So
it's so light it floats.
Yeah, and even with this, like this BGMQ that I really like, it's a little bit heavier. The Otis 2500 is only 7 ounces. This is a little bit over 8, but even this rod is so light that it'll float at even an 8 ounce reel. But I saw all these rods that I guess we'll put links down below to at least the ones that we found so far to have the best performance. They all float naturally with the reels that we recommend, and they just flat out cast far. They're effortless. And have plenty of drag to handle any size snook or redfish or trout. So
and if you're thinking about the higher end one, the slot machine, it's $100 off. If you remember,
yeah.
To join the Saltwater Insular Club is less than $100, $97. So in just one purchase, you've already paid for your membership, assuming you don't do anything else with Smart Fishing Spots or any other discounts. We give free tackle every month in our tackle tester program. We just finished that. So we do have Black Friday coming up, depending on when you listen to this, but it should be going live right around then. What do we have on the Black Friday for rods or bundles?
Yeah, so with Black Friday, we're starting what we call system bundles, just to make it our job. Our focus is our membership and helping members catch more fish than ever before while saving money. And we know that rods are the most important tool for catching more fish. So we give the best incentives on rods. So yeah, Joe mentioned before that slot machine, which is the tip, by far the best rod I've ever used. It's $100 off just for each rod. And that's more than an annual membership. So we're trying to make, hey, if you want nice stuff, you're going to more than pay for membership by being a member. The slot machine, the slam stick, both the travel edition and the regular, you're still saving around $50. So you basically get half of your membership. And what we're doing those is called system bundles, where we have the rods and reels already paired. And then we also have a bunch of custom lures that have been really designed in tandem with our members. Every month we do a tackle test program where we let members get a piece of tackle for free. And we just ask for feedback. Hey, what is it? Did it work? Do we need to make some changes? And so what we're going to do with this system bundle is add all of the lures that have passed our testing of both internal as well as our 60,000 members, spanning from Texas all the way to North Virginia. We're going to have the most popular lures, and it defaults to the most popular colors, but you can still customize your colors if you want. So with this bundle, just one purchase, you'll have everything you need. You don't have to waste a bunch of time going through a store, even driving to the store for that matter. Just place the order, and we'll get it sent to you right away. You have, again, the rod, the reel, plus the braid you need to spool on it, plus the leader line that you'll need to put at the business end, and then all the lures that are proven to work throughout the entire year. And we have a fishing school on the advanced module is a lesson with a series of videos that shows exactly which lure to use based on the conditions. Obviously, not all lures are going to be awesome all the time. The key is knowing when to use each lure, and that's really the power of this system. Is not only is it everything you need, but it has the education behind it to make sure that you're using the right lure at the right time and that you're rigging it the proper way. So all that stuff is available to members, and again, the discounts alone on without factoring in our app, which is awesome for finding the fish. Just the discounts on this gear is I would say highly justifies joining at least trying the club out.
Yep. And one other thing, while we're talking about rods, that travel rod is amazing.
Yeah.
If you do any sort of traveling or even just day-to-day stuff, and you happen to live near some water, whether it's a lake or an ocean or river, and you're just like, everyone's like, man, I wish I just had a rod. That thing is awesome. It could fit in the smallest car. We've traveled with it multiple times, and boom, whatever you're fishing, it gives you 4-in-1 rod, and oh, cool, I'm at a small little river and catching small fish, or you know what, there's some actual monster bass or snook over here in the spillway. It is such a great deal.
Yeah,
I really do think the coolest travel rod ever made.
Yeah, and again, the con of most travel rods is that we'll go back to the beginning. They're heavy, they're short, right? 7 foot, rarely, hardly any 7.6 rods, and they're just overly heavy, right? They're overly protective of it, and so we designed our travel rod from the Slam Stick, which is our most popular rod, because it's not the peak performance, but it's almost there and way more unbreakable. I should say, just don't high stick it. Don't ever high stick a good rod though. But with this the travel version of the Slam Stick, you're going to get a base plus a midsection. That you're going to have 2 midsections. One is medium, the other is medium light, so that you can customize your power based on the fishing you're going to be doing on whatever travels you have going. And then you're going to get 2 tips as well. I can't even go that far, but on the tips, you're going to get a fast action tip, which is ideal. If you only have one, use fast action. But if you're going to be freelining some shrimp or some small bait fish, there's a moderate fast as well. That way you can have that slower release. But long story short, you can just customize the rod while traveling to always have essentially the top performance on whatever fishing you're going to be doing. Later, it'll be next year. We're going to have a midsection of medium heavy. So that'll be like an additional thing you can buy later. So that's not available yet. But it's in the works. But it's awesome. Yeah, it's lightweight and still light enough that it floats the reels in case you drop it. It is by far the best travel rod that I've ever done.
That's at fishstrong.com. Another one, Insider members, save massive on all of it. So this is certainly a time to become a member if you're not already. I'm going to pay for your membership in one purchase. And if you are, take advantage of it. Get a great rod. Invest in the best. That is one thing you do not want to skimp on. As Luke said, we did it for years. And we'd spend more money on the reel than the rod. Now it's the opposite. We're spending way more money on our rods. And in some instances, I've made fun of myself for buying a really, really expensive Daiwa Exist. I was so curious about it. But even then, I've probably still caught more fish on the Fuego or the Otis 2500. Like we were in Louisiana, going up those monster fish. It didn't matter. But guess what you needed to have was a rod. We were fishing shallow water. And if you didn't have a powerful enough rod, you were not bringing that fish in. It was not the drag; it was the rod that was the lever to get give you the leverage to actually control those fish and to get them out.
Yeah, I've had countless times where usually the rods that I give to let other people use have like my older reels, and so I'll put my lowest end ones. It's like a $70 reel will be on the nice, like the slot machine. And it's like every time they'll cast like, oh my gosh, this reel casts so far. Like, what is it? Like, no, it's not the reel. It's not.
That's a Daiwa Legalis.
They're always shocked. Like, what? Like, this is half the price of the reels I usually buy. And it's the rod doesn't do the casting. The reel doesn't do the casting. It's all in spinning. The rod does like 95% of the important tasks. All the reel does is provide drag, and that's another thing with reels. Like all you need is like 5 to 6 pounds of drag for inshore saltwater fishing. If you're using 10 to 20 pound line, anything more, that you're going to break your line. So don't worry about having a reel that has 50 pounds of drag or some high number. You just want a smooth reel that fits your budget, that allows you to get the nicest rod you can get is what I recommend people do now.
Yep. That's it, guys. We'll end it there. Hope you have wonderful Thanksgiving. Make sure to take advantage of it. We'll put links down in the show notes if you're on YouTube or if you're on our blog. And just make sure to go to fishstrong.com. You can only get these rods we talked about at fishstrong.com. And then saltstrong.com is where you'd go to sign up for the club, the Insider Club. So we have just celebrated 65,000 happy members. It continues to grow. Just an amazing community. We've got everyone from beginners to weekend warriors, even full-time guides that are paid members because there's something for everyone, whether you're just trying to save money on tackle or figure out what you need and just as important, what to avoid. If you just want an awesome community or just want more education and want access to an app like Smart Fishing Spots, it gives you an edge, not just for finding spots, but even as you continue to catch fish, it tracks all your waypoints for you, all privately and confidentially to you only. So it's essentially your catch log that now can start helping you predict, oh, you know what? This is the month where I've been catching all those redfish, and it's during this tide. It just helps you become a better and more consistent and confident angler. So that's all. It's saltstrong.com. Anything else, Luke?
No, that covers it. Yeah, just don't make the mistake that I did on just buying the wrong equipment. It held me back for 10 plus years, maybe more, and cost me all sorts of money. So get the good stuff, take care of it, and it's going to take care of you and catching more fish than ever.
Yeah, I mean, Luke couldn't even grow a beard until he finally figured it out. That's right. Baby face. It's true.
A lot of benefits.
Look back at the timeline. Who would have thought? All right, guys. Talk to you in the next episode. Peace.
So, yeah.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul.